I stood in the doorway of my beautiful country house, watching the dust cloud from my son's BMW settle on the gravel driveway. Through the windshield, I counted 5 faces instead of the 2 I'd expected. My phone buzzed with his text, "Change of plans, Mom. Stay in the garage tonight." After 30 years of putting everyone else first, after using every penny of my dear Frank's inheritance on this house, meant for family gatherings, my own son wanted me sleeping next to lawnmowers. Perfect. The morning Frank died, he held my hand so tight I thought he'd never let go. Pancreatic cancer had stolen his body, but not his spirit. Ariel. He whispered, his voice barely audible over the beeping machines. Promise me something. For once in your life, do something just for you. Not for me, not for the kids, just for you. 6 months had passed since I'd made that promise, and I'd finally kept it. The life insurance and savings Frank had secretly accumulated over 40 years of working double shifts at the power plant totaled $450,000. When I saw that number on the bank statement, I cried for an hour straight. He'd worn the same work boots for 5 years, patched and repatched, just to save a few more dollars for my future. The country house in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Georgia had been our shared dream since our honeymoon. We'd driven through those winding mountain roads pointed at the craftsman-style homes with their wraparound porches and promised each other that someday we'd have one of our own. Someday never came while Frank was alive, but I could still keep half of our promise. Finding the perfect house took 3 months of searching. The moment I saw the 4-bedroom Craftsman with its stone chimney and cedar shake siding, I knew Frank would have loved it. The previous owners, a couple moving to Florida for retirement, had renovated everything. The kitchen had granite countertops Frank would have run his calloused hands over in wonder. The master bedroom faced east, perfect for watching sunrises like we used to do on Sunday mornings. But what really sold me was the converted garage apartment. The sellers had transformed it into a legitimate guest suite with its own bathroom, kitchenette, and private entrance. They'd even installed heating and air conditioning, making it more comfortable than most hotel rooms. I paid $380,000 for the house and spent another $70,000 on my own modifications, including a security system I didn't mention to anyone. My son Jason's reaction to the purchase should have been my first warning. When I called to share the news, excited as a schoolgirl, his response was calculated silence, followed by, "That's a lot of money for one person, Mom. Have you thought this through?" Patricia, his wife, must have been listening because I heard her stage whisper, "Ask her about retirement community investments." "I'm 68, not 98, I told them, "and this is exactly what your father wanted me to do." The conversation ended with Jason's promise to visit soon to check on the place. The way he said it made my stomach turn slightly, though I pushed the feeling aside. This was Jason, my baby boy, who used to bring me dandelions and call them roses. My daughter Sarah called from Seattle that evening, her voice warm with genuine happiness. "Mom, that's wonderful. Dad would be so proud you finally got your mountain house. Send pictures immediately." The difference between my children's reactions sat heavy on my chest as I unpacked boxes in my new home. Sarah had always been like Frank, generous, kind, thinking of others before herself. She'd become a social worker, married a good man named David, and was raising 2 beautiful children who video called me every Sunday without being reminded. Jason, on the other hand, had grown into someone I sometimes didn't recognize. The investment banking world had sharpened him into something sleek and cold, like those glass buildings he worked in. Patricia matched him perfectly. All designer clothes and subtle put-downs, wrapped in concerned smiles. 2 weeks into mountain living, as I arranged Frank's photographs on the mantel, his brother Earl called. "Ariel, I've been meaning to talk to you about something." Before Frank passed, he asked me to look into some things. About Jason. My hand stilled on Frank's favorite photo, the one from our 25th anniversary. "What things, Earl?" "Just be careful with your finances." Frank was worried. Said Jason had been asking questions about life insurance policies, savings accounts, things a son shouldn't be so interested in while his father's dying. I thanked Earl but dismissed his concerns. Grief made people imagine things. Jason might be cold, but he was still my son. Frank had probably misunderstood. That night, I decided to organize Frank's papers properly. He'd always been meticulous about filing creating systems I'd teased him about. "The IRS isn't going to raid us, honey." I'd laugh as he labeled another folder. In the back of the filing cabinet behind tax returns from the previous decade, I found an envelope labeled in Frank's shaky handwriting, "For Ariel, just in case." Inside were photocopies of credit reports, bank statements, and gambling receipts. Not Frank's, Jason's. $200,000 in debts to casinos and private lenders. The dates went back 3 years. 3 years of Frank knowing our son was drowning and saying nothing to me. A sticky note in Frank's writing was attached to the worst of it. "Tried to help him twice. He promised to stop. Keeping these in case he comes for your money when I'm gone. I'm sorry, honey. I should have been stronger with him." I sat on the floor of my new home office until the sun came up, those papers spread around me like accusations. Every time Jason had visited during Frank's illness, every concerned look, every offer to help with finances, it all took on a different shade. My phone rang at 7 sharp. Jason's number. I let it go to voicemail, not trusting my voice yet. "Hi, Mom, just checking in. Patricia and I were thinking of driving up this weekend to see your new place. She's been looking at some wonderful retirement communities near us with guest cottages. Much more practical than maintaining a big house all alone. Call me back." I looked at the papers again, then at Frank's photo. He was smiling in it, that crooked grin that had made me fall in love 42 years ago. "What else were you protecting me from?" I asked his image. The sunrise painted my new kitchen golden as I made coffee in the machine Frank never got to use. Outside, deer grazed in the meadow behind the house. The Blue Ridge Mountains rose in the distance, misty and eternal. This was supposed to be our dream, our reward for decades of sacrifice and saving. I picked up my phone and texted Jason back, "Come whenever you like, I'll make your favorite pot roast." Then I called a locksmith to change all the locks and upgraded my security system to include interior cameras. Frank had protected me his whole life. The least I could do was learn to protect myself. 3 months into mountain life, I'd built something I never expected: genuine happiness. Martha Wellington, the retired judge next door, had become my closest friend. We shared morning coffee on our respective porches, waving across the rhododendron bushes that separated our properties. Her sharp legal mind and wicked sense of humor reminded me why Frank always said judges were just lawyers who'd learned to laugh at the absurdity of human behavior. Tom Bradley lived on my other side, a former FBI agent who'd traded chasing criminals for raising chickens and fixing things. He'd already repaired my gate, serviced my lawnmower, and installed motion lights around my property without accepting a penny. "Frank would haunt me if I took money from his widow," he'd said, and I believed him. The Blackberry Mountain Book Club met every Thursday in my living room. 8 women ranging from 50 to 85, we devoured mysteries and memoirs with equal enthusiasm. They'd welcomed me like a lost sister returning home, and their stories of reinvention after loss gave me strength I didn't know I needed. But Jason's calls cast shadows over my mountain paradise. They came like clockwork every Sunday evening, each following the same pattern. "How are you feeling, Mom? Any problems with the house? That's a lot of property for one person to maintain." His voice carried that particular tone of false concern that made my teeth ache. Patricia always chimed in on speaker, "We just worry about you all alone up there. What if you fell? What if you forgot to turn off the stove?" These things happen at your age. "I'm 68, not senile," became my standard response, though each week it grew harder to keep the irritation from my voice. The questions evolved, becoming more pointed. "Have you thought about setting up a power of attorney just in case something happens? Maybe we should add my name to your bank accounts for emergencies. That house must be worth a fortune now. Have you considered the tax implications?" Thanksgiving arrived with the subtlety of a freight train. I'd invited both children, hoping Sarah's warmth might balance Jason's chill. But Sarah called the night before, tears in her voice. "Mom, Emma has the flu and David's getting sick too. I can't risk bringing it to you. I'm so sorry." "Next year, sweetheart." I assured her, though disappointment settled in my chest like a stone. Jason and Patricia arrived at noon, but they weren't alone. Patricia's parents, Harold and Beverly Cromwell, emerged from the back seat like they owned the place. No warning, no request, just assumption. Mother thought it would be nice for us all to be together, Patricia announced, air-kissing my cheek while her eyes cataloged my home's value. I'd prepared dinner for 305. While I scrambled to stretch the meal, they conducted what felt like an inspection. Harold ran his fingers along surfaces, checking for dust. Beverly opened closets. Looking for the powder room she'd already been shown. Patricia photographed everything with her phone, murmuring about documenting memories. At dinner, the interrogation began in earnest. "This stuffing is interesting," Beverly said, which translated to, "not how I make it." "The location's rather remote," Harold added. "What happens when you can't drive anymore?" "I saw the most wonderful retirement community near us," Patricia interjected, producing glossy brochures from her purse, like a magician with scarves. "They have medical staff on site, organized activities, and they handle all the maintenance. So much more practical than rattling around in this big house alone." Jason pushed a folder across the table. "I took the liberty of having my lawyer draft some documents. Power of attorney, healthcare directives, that sort of thing. Better to handle these things while you're still capable." The word hung in the air like a slap. I smiled, serving pie I no longer wanted to eat, and promised to look everything over carefully. They left at 8, earlier than expected. Patricia muttered about the treacherous mountain roads, though the night was clear and calm. I stood on my porch watching their taillights disappear the folder of papers, heavy in my hands. Inside, I found more than power of attorney forms. There were competency evaluation guidelines, information about conservatorships, and a sticky note in Patricia's handwriting. Dr. Morrison's psychiatric evaluations for elderly parents. Very cooperative. My phone rang as I was feeding the fire with their documents. Sarah's name appeared, and I almost didn't answer, not trusting my voice. "Mom, I need to tell you something weird," she began without preamble. "Jason called me yesterday. He was asking all these strange questions. Had I noticed you being forgetful? Did you repeat stories? Had your personality changed? When I said you seemed happier than you'd been in years, he got angry. Said I wasn't being observant enough." "What did you tell him?" My voice came out steadier than expected. "I told him to go to hell. Mom, what's going on? This isn't about your health. I can hear it in your voice. You sound scared." I looked at the ashes of the documents in my fireplace. "I think your brother has financial problems, and I think he's decided I'm the solution." Sarah's silence stretched long before she spoke again. "The gambling? You knew." "David saw him at a casino in Atlantic City last year. Jason begged him not to tell anyone, swore he had it under control." "Oh, Mom, how bad is it?" $200,000 according to your father's records." "Dad knew." Her voice cracked. "Of course he did. He always protected us, even from each other. Mom, you need to protect yourself now. Jason's not the boy who brought you dandelions anymore." After we hung up, I sat in Frank's favorite chair, wrapped in the quilt his mother made for our wedding. The house creaked and settled around me, familiar sounds that should have been comforting but felt like warnings. The next morning, I found Tom fixing my mailbox, which had mysteriously come loose overnight. "Saw a car parked down the road for a while yesterday after your family left," he mentioned casually. "Took down the plate number just in case." Martha invited me for tea that afternoon, her judge face on. "I couldn't help but notice your visitors yesterday, your son and daughter-in-law." When I nodded, she continued, "I've seen that look before, Ariel, on the faces of adult children counting their inheritance while their parents still breathe. If you need legal advice, my retirement doesn't mean I've forgotten the law." That night, I decided to clean Jason's old room, now my guest bedroom. Behind the dresser, I was moving something fell. His old laptop, probably forgotten from a visit last year. My finger hesitated over the power button. Privacy had always been sacred in our house. But Frank's voice echoed in my mind, "Protect yourself, honey." The laptop wasn't password protected. Careless, or maybe Jason never imagined his simple mother would snoop. His email was still logged in. The messages painted a picture worse than I'd imagined. Exchanges with Patricia planning their approach. Mom's getting older, definitely showing signs of decline. If we move fast, we can have control before she wastes Dad's money. Research on conservatorships bookmarked articles titled, How to Prove Your Elderly Parent Needs Help, and 5 Signs of Dementia Your Parent May Be Hiding. But the worst was a message to someone named Derek. The old bat bought a house worth $500,000 easy. Once we have control, quick sale solves everything. She'll be better off in a home anyway. Old bat, the words burned behind my eyes. I photographed everything with my phone, then returned the laptop exactly where I'd found it. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of Frank's favorite whiskey, the bottle we'd saved for special occasions that never came. What would you do? I asked his photo. But I already knew. Frank would have played the long game. He'd have gathered evidence, built a case, and protected what mattered. He'd spent 40 years showing me how. I called Martha the next morning. I need your help, and maybe your old courtroom skills. Finally, she said. I was wondering when you'd ask. We spent the morning documenting everything building files that would have made Frank proud. Tom joined us for lunch, offering his FBI connections if needed. Elder abuse is a federal crime, he reminded us, and attempting to steal someone's assets through false incompetency claims is fraud. That evening, I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the mountains purple. My phone buzzed with another text from Jason. Mom, we're planning a spring visit. Want to bring some friends who are medical professionals. They're eager to meet you. I typed back, how wonderful, I'll prepare the guest rooms. Then I called my security company and added more cameras, including hidden ones in the main house. If Jason wanted to play games, I'd learned from the best. Frank had protected me our whole marriage. Now it was time to show our son that his mother wasn't just some old bat with money. The mountains stood eternal and unshakable in the dying light. I would be the same. Winter melted into spring in the mountains, bringing dogwood blossoms and terrible revelations in equal measure. I spent those months like a detective in one of our book club mysteries, except the villain was my own son. Tom's FBI connections proved invaluable. Over coffee one morning, he slid a folder across my kitchen table, with the practiced ease of someone who'd passed countless files containing human disappointments. Your boy's in deeper than you thought, Ariel. These aren't just casino debts anymore. The papers inside detailed a web of deceit that would have impressed a crime novelist. Jason had borrowed from private lenders with interest rates that would make loan sharks blush. Worse, he'd been skimming from client accounts at his investment firm. Small amounts carefully hidden, but the pattern was clear to trained eyes. He's looking at 5 to 10 if they catch him, Tom said gently, and they always catch them eventually. Martha reviewed the emails. I'd found her reading glasses perched on her nose like when she used to review case law. This conservation ship plan of theirs is amateur hour, but that doesn't make it less dangerous. They're counting on you being too trusting to fight back, too embarrassed to make a scene. She was right, of course. The old Ariel would have been exactly that. The woman who'd spent 40 years keeping peace, smoothing over conflicts, pretending not to notice when feelings got hurt. But that Ariel had died with Frank. This new version was learning she had sharper edges. I began my performance with subtle touches. During Jason's weekly calls, I'd occasionally forget what we'd discussed the previous week. Did you already tell me about your promotion? Oh dear, of course you did. I'd let my voice trail off, adding just enough confusion to be concerning but not obvious. Patricia, ever the opportunist, pounced on these moments. Are you writing things down, Mom? It helps when memory gets unreliable. That's a wonderful idea, dear. I'd respond, injecting a note of gratitude that made my skin crawl. Meanwhile, I was writing everything down, just not what they thought. Every conversation was documented, recorded on my phone, and backed up to 3 different cloud services. Martha taught me about contemporaneous records and their legal weight. Tom showed me how to track metadata on emails and texts. The book club ladies became unwitting accomplices in my deception. During our meetings, I'd occasionally call someone by the wrong name or forget the plot of the book we'd just discussed. They'd exchange worried glances, and I knew word would travel. Small towns are efficient that way. Ariel seems to be slipping a bit, I overheard Doris whisper to Agnes at the grocery store. Such a shame so soon after Frank. Perfect. Let Jason hear his mother was struggling. Let him think his plan was working. 2 weeks before the spring visit, Jason's calls increased. Daily check-ins. Just to hear your voice, Mom. Each call contained careful probes about my routine, my finances, whether I'd had any accidents or close calls. Actually, I said during one call, allowing a tremor into my voice, I did have a little incident with the stove. Forgot I was boiling water until the smoke alarm went off. Silly me. I could practically hear Jason's satisfaction through the phone. These things happen, Mom. That's why Patricia and I worry. The house is so big, so many things could go wrong. In reality, I deliberately burned a pot while on the phone with my insurance agent, who documented that I'd called within minutes, handled the situation appropriately, and even laughed about it. Another piece of evidence that I was competent, creating a small incident and managing it perfectly. The masterstroke came when I transferred the bulk of my liquid assets into irrevocable trusts that Martha helped structure. Jason would never know until too late. The paperwork was filed quietly, the assets protected, but I kept enough in my regular accounts to avoid suspicion. Let them see what they expected to see. I also discovered something beautiful about the garage apartment during those preparations. What I'd initially seen as a simple guest suite was actually a small architectural gem. The previous owners had spared no expense. Heated floors, a spa-like bathroom, a kitchenette with high-end appliances, and windows overlooking a private garden. It was nicer than most people's main homes. I'm thinking of renovating it further, I told Martha one afternoon as we toured the space. Maybe add a small library nook, upgrade the entertainment system. She gave me a knowing look. Planning to spend time here? Just considering all possibilities, I replied, and we both smiled at the understatement. 3 days before the visit, Jason called with final instructions. His voice carried the particular tone of someone who believes they've already won. Mom, I need you to understand something. We're bringing important people. Dr. Morrison is doing us a huge favor by coming. He's one of the best geriatric psychiatrists in the state. Patricia's parents are considering investing in some property nearby, so we need everything perfect. Of course, dear. How many am I cooking for? 6, including you and Mom. It might be better if you stayed in the garage apartment while we're there, just for a few days. The main house needs to be in showcase condition, and we wouldn't want you to feel stressed about maintaining it while we're visiting. You understand, right? It's what's best for everyone. The words I wanted to say burned my throat like acid. Instead, I let a confused, hurt tone creep into my voice. The garage. But Jason, I live here. It's a beautiful space, Mom, like a little vacation. And if you embarrass us in front of Dr. Morrison and the Cromwells, well, there's a lovely facility near us that has an opening. Very exclusive. You'd have your own room and everything. There it was. The threat wrapped in concern, the ultimatum disguised as care. If you think it's best, I whispered, adding a small defeated sigh. I knew you'd understand. We'll see you Friday afternoon. After hanging up, I stood in my kitchen looking at the home I'd made. Every surface held a memory of Frank. Every room echoed with dreams we'd shared. They wanted to take it all, reduce me to a problem, to be managed, a bank account, to be drained. I called Sarah that night. I need you to know what's happening. I began, then told her everything. Her flight was booked before I finished talking. I'll stay with Martha. They don't need to know I'm there until the right moment. Are you sure Jason's still your brother? No, Sarah said firmly. My brother disappeared years ago. This person wearing his face, he's a stranger who wants to hurt my mother. I'll be there Thursday night. That evening, I packed a bag for the garage apartment, making sure to include some mismatched clothes and multiple versions of the same outfit, the kind of thing a confused elderly person might do. I also packed my recording equipment, legal documents, and laptop, the things that mattered. Tom stopped by with a small device. GPS tracker, he explained. Just in case they try to take you somewhere against your will. Clip it inside your purse. Martha brought over a medical evaluation from my actual doctor conducted the previous week, stating I was in excellent mental and physical health. Always good to have current documentation, she said, adding it to our growing file. The stage was set. Props in place, actors ready to perform. They thought they were coming to claim their prize to find a confused old woman ready to be packed away. Instead, they'd find something else entirely. But not at first. First, I'd give them exactly what they expected to see. The confused elderly mother, the easy mark, the problem to be solved. I'd play the role perfectly because Frank had taught me patience, and the mountains had taught me strength. Let them come, I was ready. Friday arrived wrapped in morning mist that clung to the mountains like secrets waiting to be revealed. I stood at my bedroom window watching the sun burn through the fog and prepared for the performance of my lifetime. By noon, I'd moved my essentials to the garage apartment, deliberately leaving signs of confusion in the main house. Medication bottles arranged haphazardly on the kitchen counter, actually vitamins and supplements, sticky notes with reminders placed randomly, Frank's birthday, November, December, and photo albums left open to pages I'd seemingly been studying, trying to remember. At 2:30, the security cameras alerted me to movement on the driveway. Jason's black BMW led the procession, followed by a rental SUV. I positioned myself on the front porch, wringing my hands in what I hoped looked like nervous anticipation. Jason emerged first, his face set in an expression of grim determination. Patricia followed her designer heels, clicking against the gravel like a countdown to execution. From the SUV came Harold and Beverly Cromwell, Patricia's parents dressed like they were attending a country club luncheon rather than visiting family. Behind them, a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes, Dr. Morrison, no doubt, helped a blonde woman I assumed was his wife. Not one of them looked at me until they'd gathered their belongings. Then Jason approached, his smile as artificial as Patricia's handbag. "Hi, Mom, you look..." He paused, studying me with calculating eyes. Tired. I dressed carefully for this moment. A cardigan with a small stained slacks that didn't quite match hairstyled, but with one section slightly mussed. "Oh, Jason, I was expecting you yesterday. Or was it tomorrow?" I let confusion cloud my features. Patricia and her mother exchanged significant looks. Dr. Morrison pulled out a small notebook. "It's Friday, Mom. We talked about this 3 days ago, remember?" Jason's voice carried false patience like speaking to a child. Of course, come in, I made lunch. Or was it breakfast? The days do run together." They swept past me into the house like an invading army. I caught Harold Cromwell muttering to his wife, "Bigger than I expected, worth more than Jason estimated." Inside, they began their inspection while I fluttered around playing the anxious hostess. Patricia immediately claimed the master bedroom, running her fingers along the furniture surfaces. "We'll need to air this out," she announced, though the room was spotless. Beverly Cromwell opened kitchen cabinets, examining my dishes like an appraiser. "Some nice pieces here. That serving platter looks like genuine Waterford." It was my mother's, I offered, watching her mentally calculate its value. Dr. Morrison settled in the living room, his notebook open, observing my every movement. His wife, who'd barely spoken, seemed more interested in photographing the artwork than socializing. "Mom," Jason said, his voice carrying a thread of impatience, "why don't you show us where you'll be staying in the garage apartment?" "Oh yes, it's quite nice, actually. Would you like to see..." "Maybe later. Right now we're hungry. You mentioned lunch." They'd made no move to help, no offer to set the table or carry dishes. I served them like hired help in my own home, noting how Patricia critiqued every dish. "The roast is a bit overdone, isn't it?" she murmured to her mother. "Seasoning's off too," Beverly added, though she cleaned her plate. Dr. Morrison engaged me in seemingly casual conversation, but I recognized the evaluation hidden in each question. "Tell me about your daily routine, Mrs. Winters. Do you find it challenging to keep track of things?" "Oh, some days are better than others," I replied, deliberately vague. "I write lists, but then I forget where I put them." Just this morning, I couldn't remember if I'd taken my pills or not." His pen moved across the notebook. Jason nodded approvingly. After lunch, they dismissed me to clear the table while they convened in the living room. The cameras I'd installed captured everything, including Harold's assessment of my property value and Patricia's whispered comment about that horrible nursing home smell old people get. As evening approached, Jason found me in the kitchen. "Mom, why don't you head to the garage apartment now? We're tired from the drive and Dr. Morrison needs quiet to prepare some notes. We'll see you in the morning." "But I haven't shown you the changes I made to the house," I protested weakly. "Tomorrow, Mom, go rest. You seem confused." I gathered my overnight bag with shaking hands, though the tremor was from anger, not frailty. At the door, I turned back to see them already spreading out documents on my dining table. Patricia's parents were discussing furniture placement as if they already owned the place. The garage apartment welcomed me with its hidden luxury. I locked the door, activated my laptop, and watched the live feed from the house cameras. They wasted no time. "The medication setup is perfect," Dr. Morrison said. "Clear signs of confusion about dosages." "And those sticky notes," Patricia added. "Classic dementia behavior." Jason produced files from his briefcase. "I've prepared everything. Power of attorney documents, conservatorship applications, and I've already spoken to Golden Years about availability. The house appraised at $520 last month," Harold announced. "Quick sale, we could get $450 easy." They spent 2 hours strategizing, documenting my decline, and planning my future without my input. Beverly pocketed 2 silver candlesticks for safekeeping. Patricia photographed every room again, likely for real estate listings. But the best moment came when Jason accessed my laptop, the one I'd deliberately left visible on the desk. He found the fake diary I'd created full of confused entries, fears about forgetting Frank's death, and mentions of getting lost in my own house. "This is gold," he told the others. "She's documenting her own incompetence." They celebrated with wine from Frank's collection, toasting their clever plan. Through the cameras, I watched my son become someone I'd never raised, someone Frank would have been ashamed to call family. At midnight, the cameras caught them conducting a thorough search. They found my jewelry box. I'd replaced real pieces with costume jewelry, important-looking documents, all fake, and bank statements, showing modest balances, the real assets hidden in trusts. Beverly slipped my grandmother's ring onto her finger. She won't even notice it's gone. Dr. Morrison drafted his preliminary report using medical terms to describe symptoms I'd never exhibited. His wife finally spoke, suggesting they check the garage apartment to ensure it's suitable for her current state. "Tomorrow," Jason decided. "Let her think she's safe tonight." Safe, as if I was the one in danger. I saved every video file, backed them up to multiple clouds, and sent copies to Martha and Tom. Sarah, watching from Martha's house, texted, "I can't believe that's my brother." Neither could I. The boy who'd cried when our goldfish died had become a man plotting to steal his mother's life. But Frank had always said the best poker players were those who could watch their opponents reveal their hands while keeping their own cards hidden. They thought they'd found a confused old woman with valuable assets. Tomorrow they'd learn exactly what they'd really found. But tonight I'd let them dream of easy money and quick solutions. I fell asleep in the garage apartment's comfortable bed, surrounded by evidence of their greed, protected by truth and technology. The mountains stood guard outside my windows, eternal and unshakable. Just like me. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of mountain morning that usually filled my heart with peace. Instead, I dressed carefully in mismatched clothes, a blue blouse with black slacks that were actually navy, 2 different earrings I pretended not to notice. The performance continued. I knocked tentatively on my own back door at 8 sharp, like a guest seeking permission to enter. Patricia answered in my grandmother's silk robe, the one from my bedroom closet. "Oh, Ariel, we weren't expecting you so early." She used my first name like we were peers, not mother and daughter-in-law. "I thought I'd make breakfast," I offered meekly, "if that's all right." She stepped aside with exaggerated patience. In the kitchen, Jason sat at the head of the table, Frank's place, reviewing documents. The others occupied themselves with their phones and coffee, treating me like invisible help. As I scrambled eggs, I heard Dr. Morrison tell his wife, "Classic sundowning behavior. Note how she knocked rather than using her key." I hadn't sundowning. I'd knocked because murderous rage makes it hard to manage keys, and I needed the extra moment to compose myself. Breakfast became another evaluation. I forgot the toast twice-served orange juice to someone who'd asked for coffee and called Dr. Morrison Dr. Morgan repeatedly. Each mistake was met with significant looks and scratching pens. "Mrs. Winters," Dr. Morrison began formally, "I'd like to have a conversation about your future care needs." "Oh, how thoughtful. Would you like more eggs?" "No, I mean your medical needs, your cognitive state. Surely you've noticed some challenges lately." I let my bottom lip tremble. I do get confused sometimes. Yesterday I couldn't remember where I parked at the grocery store. Walked around for 20 minutes. "Mom," Jason interjected with false concern, "you haven't driven to town in 3 days. I have your car keys, remember." I blinked rapidly, touching my forehead. Oh dear. Then how did I... They practically salivated at this evidence. Patricia's mother leaned forward. "Ariel, dear, wouldn't you feel safer in a place with medical staff? People who could help when you have these episodes?" "But this is my home," I whispered, adding a convincing quaver. "About that." Jason produced a thick folder. "We need to discuss some financial matters. For your own protection, of course." They spread papers across my dining table like vultures dividing carrion. Power of attorney documents, conservatorship applications, pre-admission forms for Golden Years assisted living. "I've taken the liberty of reviewing your finances," Jason continued. "You're spending unsustainably. This house, the maintenance utilities, it's too much for someone in your condition." "My condition?" Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. "Based on my preliminary evaluation, you're showing clear signs of moderate cognitive decline. Memory loss, confusion, impaired judgment. It's not safe for you to live independently or manage complex financial decisions." "But I feel fine," I protested weakly. "That's part of the disease," he explained with practiced condescension. "Patients often lack insight into their own deterioration." Patricia produced a tablet showing Golden Years' website. "Look, they have gardening and bingo. You love bingo." I'd never played bingo in my life. "The best part," Beverly added, examining her nails where my grandmother's ring now resided, "is that Jason can manage everything for you. The house sale investments bills. You won't have to worry about a thing." Harold nodded sagely. "Market's perfect for selling. We could list Monday, have offers by Wednesday." They were planning my life's demolition like a weekend project. Jason pushed the power of attorney papers toward me. "Just sign here, Mom. Let us take care of you." I picked up the pen with shaking fingers, then set it down. Could I have a moment? This is so much to process." "Of course," Jason said magnanimously. "But Mom, if you refuse to cooperate, we'll have to pursue conservatorship through the courts. That would be so stressful for everyone, especially you." The threat hung heavy. Sign willingly or be forced. Either way, they'd win. "I understand," I murmured. "Maybe I should rest a bit. My head feels fuzzy." They agreed eagerly. Confusion supported their narrative. I retreated to the garage apartment where I immediately called Martha. "Phase 2, I said simply. "On our way," she replied. I waited 30 minutes, then returned to the house with a small box of Frank's things. "I wanted to show you something," I announced, entering the living room where they'd gathered. "Mom, we're in the middle of important discussions," Jason said irritably. "This won't take long." I pulled out Frank's watch, his reading glasses, his wallet. I keep forgetting he's gone. Sometimes I set his place at dinner. Is that normal? Dr. Morrison practically glowed. "Actually, that's something we should discuss." The doorbell interrupted him. Through the window, I saw Martha's car, Tom's truck, and another vehicle I recognized as belonging to the sheriff. Jason frowned. "Were you expecting someone—" "I don't remember," I said truthfully. I hadn't remembered, I'd planned it. Martha entered without waiting for an answer, dressed in her court best. Tom followed, and Sheriff Davidson brought up the rear. But the person who made Jason's face drain of color was Sarah, stepping out from behind them with a look that could have stripped paint. "Hello, Jason," she said coolly. "Interesting gathering you have here." "Sarah, what are you doing here?" Patricia stood smoothing her stolen robe. "Supporting my mother, which seems necessary given what I've been watching." Sarah held up her phone, showing the live feed from the cameras. Every word, every threat, every theft. Cameras. Beverly gasped unconsciously, covering the ring on her finger. I dropped the confused act like a worn coat. My voice when I spoke was clear and sharp as mountain air. "Did you really think I'd gotten stupid along with old that grief had made me blind?" The transformation stunned them. Dr. Morrison's notebook fell from nerveless fingers. Jason's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. "Ariel," Martha said formally, "I've reviewed the documentation. Clear case of attempted elder abuse fraud and conspiracy to commit theft." Tom stepped forward. "I've shared the financial evidence with my former colleagues. Jason, that embezzlement from your firm, they know. They're waiting for you back in Atlanta." "Mom," Jason started, but I cut him off. "Don't. You lost the right to call me that when you called me an old bat in your emails, when you plotted to steal everything your father worked for, when you threatened to throw me away like garbage." I pulled out my phone, playing a recording of yesterday's threats. Jason's voice filled the room. "If you embarrass us, there's a lovely facility that has an opening." Sheriff Davidson moved closer to Beverly. "Ma'am, I'll need you to return that ring. We have video of you taking it from Mrs. Winter's jewelry box." "I was just keeping it safe," she stammered, pulling it off. "Like the candlesticks in your purse?" I asked sweetly. Patricia turned on Jason. "This was your idea, your plan." "My plan?" Jason snarled back. "You're the one who found Morrison." Dr. Morrison edged toward the door. "I was just conducting a medical evaluation. I had no idea about any illegal activities." "Really?" Sarah produced printed emails. "Because these messages between you and Jason discussing payment for a false diagnosis suggest otherwise. The medical board will be very interested." The room erupted. Accusations flew like shrapnel. Harold blamed Beverly, who blamed Patricia, who screamed at Jason. Dr. Morrison's wife revealed she'd been recording too. Apparently, she'd suspected her husband's shady dealings and wanted evidence for her divorce lawyer. Through it all, I stood calm in the eye of their storm. This chaos was their truth. When cornered, they turned on each other like the rats they were. "Enough!" Sheriff Davidson commanded. "Jason Winters, you're under arrest for elder abuse and attempted fraud. The Atlanta PD will handle the embezzlement charges." As they handcuffed my son, he looked at me with desperate eyes. "Mom, please. I'm your son. I made mistakes, but I'm your son." "My son died years ago," I replied steadily. "Killed by greed and replaced by a stranger who saw me as nothing but a wallet with a pulse." They took him away in the sheriff's car. Patricia fled with her parents, screaming about divorce lawyers. Dr. Morrison left with his soon-to-be ex-wife who promised to testify against him. When the dust settled, only family remained. Sarah, Martha, Tom, and me. My real family chosen by love rather than blood. "The house is so quiet," I said after a moment. Sarah hugged me tight. "How do you feel?" I considered the question. My son was going to prison. My daughter-in-law was leaving him. The people who'd planned to destroy me were facing their own destruction. "Free," I said finally. "I feel free." And in the garage apartment, I'd been banished to my laptop, chimed with an email from Jason's firm. They were grateful for the information that had helped them uncover the embezzlement. There was a reward for whistleblowers, $250,000. Frank always said the universe had a sense of humor. I was starting to agree. The aftermath unfolded like dominoes falling in precise sequence. Within hours of Jason's arrest, his carefully constructed life began collapsing. I watched from my kitchen window as news vans gathered at the end of my driveway, held back by the sheriff's deputies. The story was too delicious for media to resist. Successful investment banker attempts to defraud his elderly mother, gets caught by her hidden cameras. Patricia called me that evening, her voice stripped of its usual artificial sweetness. "I had no idea about the embezzlement," she began. "But you knew about the plan to steal my house," I replied calmly. "That was different. Jason said you were showing signs of dementia. He said we were helping you. Patricia, you measured my rooms for your furniture while planning to put me in a cut-rate facility your cousin owns. You stole my robe and wore it like a trophy. Don't insult what intelligence you think I have left by pretending you cared." She hung up. By morning, her divorce attorney had contacted Jason's lawyer. She wanted half of everything, though there was nothing left to divide except debt. The embezzlement investigation moved with startling speed. Tom's FBI connections had done their homework. Jason had stolen over $500,000 over 3 years, thinking his complex transfers would never be noticed. But forensic accountants are like bloodhounds. Once they catch the scent, they follow every trail. His firm filed civil suits alongside criminal charges. They froze every asset, seized his BMW, put liens on his house. The life he'd built on stolen money evaporated like morning mist. Patricia's parents faced their own reckoning. The video of Beverly stealing my jewelry had gone viral after someone Sarah swore it wasn't her, but her smile suggested otherwise, posted it online with the title, "Mother-in-Law from Hell Rob's Elderly Woman." Their country club expelled them. Harold's business partners distanced themselves. Beverly's charity committees suddenly found themselves fully staffed without her help. They tried to blame each other in increasingly public ways. Harold gave an interview claiming Beverly had manipulated him. Beverly countered with receipts showing Harold had researched my property value weeks before their visit. Their marriage, built on shared greed, couldn't survive the spotlight of shame. Dr. Morrison's fall was perhaps the most satisfying. The medical board suspended his license pending investigation. His wife, armed with recordings of his conversations about providing false diagnoses for money filed for divorce, and took everything that wasn't nailed down. Other families came forward claiming he'd helped their children railroad elderly parents into care facilities. The man who'd built a career on fake compassion found himself genuinely in need of psychiatric help. But it was Jason's complete psychological unraveling that proved most revealing. From jail, he called me daily, cycling through manipulation tactics like a desperate salesman. Day 1. "Mom, this is all a misunderstanding. If you just drop the charges, we can work this out as a family." Day 3. "How can you do this to your own son? Dad would be ashamed of you." Day 5. "I'm going to kill myself if you don't help me. Is that what you want?" Day 7. "You turned Sarah against me? You've destroyed our family." I stopped accepting the calls after he screamed that I was a selfish witch who'd rather have money than a son. The irony of that accusation from someone who'd tried to rob me wasn't lost. Sarah stayed for 2 weeks, helping me process both the legal matters and the emotional aftermath. We spent evenings on the porch sharing wine and memories of the brother she'd once had. "He was sweet once," she said one evening watching fireflies dance over the garden. "Remember when he saved all his allowance to buy you that mixer for Christmas?" "I still have it," I admitted, "in the basement, couldn't bear to throw it away." When did he change? I'd thought about that question constantly. Gradually, then suddenly. Like erosion. Each compromise, each shortcut, each lie wore away the boy we loved until only the shape remained. Frank's family rallied around me with fierce protectiveness. Earl drove down from Virginia, bringing his sons and their wives. They filled my house with righteous anger and protective love, declaring themselves my personal security team. "Frank asked me to watch out for you," Earl said, tears in his eyes. "I should have done more sooner." "You warned me," I reminded him. "That was enough to make me look closer." The book club ladies transformed into an army of support. They brought casseroles, offered to testify as character witnesses, and shared their own stories of family betrayal. Doris revealed her daughter had tried something similar 10 years ago. Agnes admitted her nephew had stolen her identity. We weren't alone in our pain, just in our willingness to fight back. Martha helped me navigate the legal complexities with brilliant efficiency. She'd come out of retirement specifically for this case, she told me, because some things just piss me off too much to ignore. The trial date was set for 6 months out. Jason's lawyer, a public defender, overwhelmed with cases, tried to negotiate a plea deal. 5 years instead of 10, with possibility of parole in 3. No deal, I told the prosecutor. He needs to face the full consequences. That's harsh, the prosecutor warned. Juries can be sympathetic to family situations. Then I'll trust 12 strangers to see what I finally saw, a man who viewed his mother's love as weakness to exploit. Tom continued investigating, uncovering more evidence of Jason's crimes. He'd sold information about his clients' portfolios to competitors. He'd falsified loan applications. Each revelation was another nail in the coffin of the son I'd thought I'd raised. One afternoon, while sorting through Frank's things, I found a letter addressed to Jason never sent. Frank's handwriting, shaky from his illness, spelled out his disappointment and his hope. "Son, I know about the gambling. I know about the stealing. Your mother doesn't, and I pray she never finds out. I'm leaving her everything because I know you'd take it all if I didn't. This is your last chance. When I'm gone, be the man she believes you are. Don't break her heart like you've broken mine." I sat on the bedroom floor crying for all of us. For Frank, who'd carried this burden while dying. For Jason, who'd had a father's forgiveness and thrown it away. For myself, who'd been protected by love, even from beyond the grave. That evening, I did something I hadn't done since Frank's funeral. I drove to the cemetery, bringing flowers and the letter. I sat by his headstone as sunset painted the mountains gold. "You tried to save us both," I told the granite marker, "protecting me while hoping he'd change. I'm sorry you had to carry that alone." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment I could almost hear Frank's voice. "You did good, honey. You stood up for yourself. That's all I ever wanted." I burned Jason's letter there, watching the smoke carry Frank's last hope into the sky. Some things were too painful to preserve, too heavy to carry forward. When I got home, Sarah was cooking dinner using the mixer Jason had given me 25 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Tom called," she said. "The FBI wants to interview you next week. They're building a RICO case against the nursing home chain Patricia's cousin runs. Apparently, Dr. Morrison helped dozens of families commit similar frauds." I nodded, unsurprised. Corruption rarely exists in isolation. "I'll tell them everything." "Mom," Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully, "have you thought about what happens after when Jason gets out?" I had thought about it, extensively. He's not welcome here. Not in this house, not in my life. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. "Good," she said firmly, "because I've already told him if he contacts you after prison, I'll file restraining orders in every state." That night, I walked through my house protected and preserved despite their best efforts. Every room held memories, but now they also held triumph. This wasn't just Frank's and my dream anymore. It was my fortress, my proof that I was stronger than anyone had believed. The mountains stood eternal outside my windows. I'd weathered this storm like they weathered all storms, by being too solid to move, too rooted to topple. Tomorrow would bring more legal meetings, more revelations, more reckonings. But tonight I was home safe and surrounded by the family I'd chosen over the family I'd borne. That was enough, more than enough. It was everything. 6 months later, autumn had returned to the mountains, painting the landscape in shades of gold and crimson. I sat on my porch wrapped in Frank's old flannel shirt, reading the letter from the federal prosecutor. Jason had been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, 5 for embezzlement, 3 for elder abuse and fraud. With good behavior, he might get out in 6. The trial had been brutal but cleansing, like cauterizing a wound. Jason took the stand, trying to paint himself as a desperate son, driven to extremes by financial pressure. But when the prosecutor played the recordings of him calling me an old bat and planning my institutionalization, even his own lawyer looked disgusted. Patricia testified against him as part of her immunity deal. She revealed details about other elderly people they'd researched, other potential victims saved only by their decision to target me first. Her cousin's nursing home chain was under federal investigation with Dr. Morrison as the star witness in exchange for a reduced sentence. Harold and Beverly Cromwell faced their own trials, literally and figuratively. Charged with theft and conspiracy, they pled guilty to avoid jail time. Their community service sentence seemed fitting: 3,000 hours working in legitimate nursing homes, cleaning bedpans, and facing daily the reality of elder care they'd tried to exploit. But today wasn't about them. Today was about new beginnings. "Ariel, you ready?" Martha called from next door. She'd officially come out of retirement, starting a nonprofit legal service for elder abuse victims. Our experience had taught her that too many seniors suffered in silence without resources to fight back. "Coming." I called back, gathering the papers I'd need for today's meeting. Tom pulled up in his truck, Sarah beside him. They'd become unlikely friends during the ordeal, bonding over their shared protectiveness. Tom had helped Sarah and David buy the house 3 doors down from mine. My grandchildren now rode their bikes on the same mountain roads where I walked each morning. We were heading to the community center for the first meeting of the Blue Ridge Elder Protection Society. What had started as my support group for elder abuse victims had grown into something larger. We had lawyers offering pro bono services, tech-savvy volunteers, teaching seniors about security cameras and documentation, and counselors helping families navigate the emotional aftermath of betrayal. The meeting room was packed. 50 seniors and their supportive family members filled the chairs with more standing in the back. I recognized the fear in some faces, the same fear I'd felt when I first discovered Jason's plans. "My name is Ariel." I began, my voice strong and clear. 6 months ago, my son tried to have me declared incompetent so he could steal my home and life savings. He failed because I fought back and because I had help. You're not alone. None of us are. The stories that followed broke my heart and steeled my resolve. Adult children draining bank accounts, grandchildren threatening violence for drug money, nieces and nephews manipulating documents. Each tale of betrayal was met with nods of understanding and offers of help. Martha explained legal options. Tom discussed security measures. Sarah shared resources for emotional support. But most importantly, we listened. We believed. We acted. After the meeting, as we cleaned up, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mom." Jason's voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Mom, please don't hang up." I stepped outside for privacy. "You have 1 minute." "I've been in therapy. Real therapy, not the court-mandated stuff. I understand now what I did, what I became. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't restore the trust you broke." "I know, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand how I became someone who could hurt you like that." The therapist says it started with entitlement, thinking I deserve success without earning it. Then the gambling to feel important. Then the stealing to cover the gambling. Each step made the next one easier until you decided I was just another mark I finished. "Yes," he whispered. "Dad saw it coming. He tried to warn me in a letter he sent before he died. I threw it away because I couldn't face his disappointment. Now that's all I can think about. I disappointed the 2 people who loved me most. Jason, I'm glad you're getting help, but you need to understand something. That help is for you, not for me. I've moved on. I've built a life surrounded by people who value me as a person, not a resource. When you get out, don't come here. Don't call. Don't write. Live your life, be better, but do it away from me." "I understand," he said after a long pause. "Can I ask, are you happy?" I looked through the window at my chosen family cleaning up together, laughing at something Tom said. Thought about my grandchildren coming for dinner, about the dozens of seniors we'd helped today, about the sunset I'd watch from my porch with a cup of tea in Frank's memory. Yes, I said simply, I am. We hung up without goodbyes. Some relationships couldn't be repaired, only released. That evening, I hosted dinner for 20 people. Sarah's family, Martha, and her new gentleman friend Tom and his daughter visiting from Oregon, Earl, and his wife, several book club members, and 3 women from today's meeting who'd needed immediate shelter from abusive situations. As we gathered around my dining table, extended with every leaf to accommodate everyone, I thought about Frank's last wish, that I do something just for myself. He'd been wrong about that. This wasn't just for me. It was for every person who'd ever been dismissed as just an old woman, every senior whose family saw dollar signs instead of memories, every widow who'd been told they couldn't manage alone. A toast. Martha raised her glass. To Ariel, who showed us that getting older doesn't mean getting weaker. It means getting wiser, stronger, and a hell of a lot less willing to take anyone's crap. Everyone laughed, glasses clinking in agreement. Outside, the mountains stood in their eternal watch, and I knew Frank was smiling somewhere. His inheritance had bought more than a house. It had bought freedom, safety, and the chance to turn pain into purpose. Later, as the last guests left and I settled into Frank's chair with a cup of chamomile tea, I opened the journal I'd started keeping. Not the fake one I'd used to trap Jason, but a real one documenting this new chapter. Today, I wrote, I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I needed to do, surrounded by exactly the right people. The garage apartment sits empty now. Sarah uses it as an art studio when she visits. I sleep in my own bed, in my own room, in my own house. And if anyone ever again suggests I sleep in the garage, they'll learn what this old bat is really capable of. I closed the journal and carried my tea to the porch. The sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called out. The mountains answered with their ancient silence, and I sat between them, finally, at peace. There's a strength that comes with age, a clarity that strips away the unnecessary and reveals what truly matters. Family isn't just blood, it's choice. Home isn't just walls, it's safety. And self-respect isn't selfish, it's essential. My name is Ariel Winters. I'm 68 years old. I own my home free and clear. I have a family who loves me, a community that supports me, and a purpose that drives me. Anyone who thinks that makes me weak is welcome to try me. They'll find themselves sleeping in the garage of regret while I stand firm in the house that love built and wisdom protects. Frank always said I was stronger than I knew. Turns out he was right about that too. But I had to lose everything I thought mattered to find everything that actually did. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money or property. It's the permission to finally put yourself first and the courage to never apologize for it again. Dear friends, if you've made it this far, you've walked with me through betrayal, fear, and ultimately triumph. Life sometimes tests us through the people we trust most. But remember, you are never too old to fight back, never too set in your ways to change your circumstances, and never ever obligated to accept abuse just because it comes from family. If this story resonated with you, if you've faced similar challenges or know someone who has, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the hope someone else needs to hear today. Please like this video if it touched your heart, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and justice, and share it with anyone who needs reminding that they deserve respect at every age. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you always have the courage to stand firm, the wisdom to see truth, and the strength to protect what's yours. Remember, the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living free.